We're at New York Comic Con with David Justus and Matt Sturges talking about Everafter, the new Fables series. First question is really, really simple. So there's a huge history when it comes to Fables. I mean, it's over 200 issues all combined together. What type of pressure do you feel, going into a whole new series, considering there's so much that came before? Who wants to start?
Oh, God, we didn't realize that there was that much.
Should we still be doing this?
Now I feel a lot of pressure.
Okay.
Crap. What's great, I think, yes, that we do feel pressure, but what's great is that there is that enormous body of work to draw from, and this tremendous field of characters, and not just one world, but many worlds that Bill Willingham built, and the other writers and artists that have worked on Fables and those properties, so that we have such a large pool to draw from, and we're also able to bring our own toys into that pool, that it's much more freeing than it is intimidating. I mean, we don't want to break anything, and we don't want to make anyone unhappy who's been a fan of Fables for 15 years, but we also have so many opportunities to make new fans and to re-energize the fan base who maybe thought Fables was done forever and now have something new to appreciate.
And having worked on superhero comics, I'm used to the notion of taking characters that other people have created and that fans love, and doing my best to not upset people who have ideas about those, and protect the legacy of those creators as much as I am capable of doing. I think the difference is that it's just one creator and he has my phone number, so I just have to be that much more careful.
Well, I think that's a good question of how much do you talk to Bill Willingham, who was really the father of this universe?
Sure. Bill is, I want to grab this. All right. I just want to touch it. All right. We talked to Bill a lot. He helped us with the conception of the series. We flew up to where he lives and spent a weekend just going over the stuff that we wanted to do, and he gave us ideas, and he said, yeah, that sounds good, and he said, no, don't do that. And we came away with a really strong idea of what the thing was and where it was going. And then we check in with him from time to time and say, hey, look, this is what we're thinking about doing for this issue, for this arc. And he'll give us, pointers and say, well, maybe don't use that character, or, do this and that. So it's actually an incredible thing that we get to do where, we can go straight to the source and say, is this right? Does this work? And that way we're much less likely to fall flat on our faces when we do this.
Still not entirely unlikely, but I mean,
the chance always exists.
Yeah, and there are several of the characters that we're getting to shape almost entirely, and then there are other characters that Bill had a lot of story about. Right, Peter Piper and Bo Peep from the Peter and Max novel, were almost not at all in the comics. They were in an issue and a panel here and there. But he did tons of defining them within the novel. So we have that to work from, but we also get to bring, what's happened since then? What haven't we seen? And to call him and sort of say, hey, this is where we see this going. Does that kind of jibe with what you thought? And, to get a thumbs up or a thumbs down on that is, it's great. It's great to have the person who envisioned these characters say, yeah, that's fantastic. I wouldn't have thought of that, or whatever else. Right.
And then by the same token, we have characters that are big characters in our book that were maybe showed up once, or just in the edges of Fables, where we can take those and develop them fully into a fully realized character, and have Bill goes, oh, all right, that's pretty cool. I never really thought about that guy too much or what I was going to do with him, but I like that. No, that's a nice feeling to be able to do, and hopefully, hopefully readers feel the same way.
So the interesting thing that always I thought was fascinating about Fables is that you're using characters. Some of them have been around for hundreds of years, 100-something years, easy. How do you, as writers, think about that history with those characters? Is it something where you just slightly know it and you kind of do your own spin? Do you want to do those characters right? I mean, is it kind of a mix of that?
I think it's something where we we do just enough research into them and learning their stories to we can get ourselves into trouble. You know, there are some characters when doing this series and also when we were doing The Wolf Among Us where we would look very heavily into the backstory and really go deep and research, you know, like the character of Faith in Wolf Among Us. I read everything I could find on her. But, you know, other characters will say, well, you know, here are the different dots that we know. Let's connect those in a way that's new and interesting and makes sense to us. So, you know, I think it really depends. You know, we've got some characters that right now are just background characters, like Tom Swift or who's another one, Aisha, where, you know, the more that we're learning about them, the more we're finding ways that they work in this universe and that they are part of the Fables crowd.
And that's always fun, and it's a little easier because when you're using a character that Bill already used in Fables, you're sort of trying to focus through two lenses at the same time. There's the lens of the original stories that Bill was drawing on, and then there's the lens of Bill's work himself. So trying to align those two things in a third thing is challenging. So I think you know, our goal is to have fully realized characters, and our setting is sort of a flip of what's happening in Fables, in which you have these characters who are known to people only by their stories, but their real lives are hidden. And now that world is turned upside down, in which now these people are known, magic is real, and the new stories of our world are becoming fables themselves. So we're sort of flipping the script in that regard.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. I mean, this is kind of that next thing where everything's out in the open. There's more takes on what counts as a fable, and you're creating new history. The other thing that really struck me on the first two issues, it feels more like a superhero book, like a more of a spy group, you know, thing, as opposed to Fables, which often had its own like beats a little bit. So you know, talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, sure. That's very much on purpose. We wanted to come out of the gate swinging with a lot of visual appeal, a lot of action. And we've got Travis Moore, who is really great at action. And we wanted to give new readers a chance to sort of jump in and say, oh, I can flip through this and go, all right, there's a lot of exciting things happening on this page, so let me give this a chance. The first Fable story was a fair play murder mystery, and kind of a quiet one at that. And so we didn't want to just come in and start doing some very Fables-like story and have people kind of go, well, are they just going to do Fables again? So we wanted to have a very distinct take from the outset, and then once we distinguish that, then we can start branching out in other directions. And we already have a couple of one-shots coming up after this first arc that do very different things within the context of that.
I mean, by the same token, the Cinderella stories in Fables and in Fairest and the couple of miniseries, the standalones, you know, those were espionage stories, those were spy stories. So we thought, you know, for readers of Fables, this isn't a million miles away from something they've seen, but it's a different spin on the, you know, this is more the, you know, the Impossible Mission force as opposed to yeah, exactly. So, you know, we wanted to do something that would give them a reason to reach for it on the shelf and go, okay, I believe you can tell a spy story in the Fables universe, but I've never seen one like this.
Well, appreciate talking to you guys, and thanks so much.
Yes, thank you.